It all started with a letter. A farmer's wife from Gippsland who wrote to Ford Australia in 1932 asking for a vehicle that could carry her to church on Sunday and cart pigs to market on Monday. But here's the thing, nobody can actually prove the letter ever existed. But let's not let the truth get in the way of a good story. What we do know is that someone somewhere had that exact idea, and a 22-year-old designer named Lewis Bant was the one that put it all together. What followed was one of the most uniquely Australian inventions in history, a vehicle so perfectly suited to this country that it's never really left. This is the story of the Ute. In 1932, Australia is deep in the Great Depression. Money is tight, land is hard, and most rural families can only afford one vehicle. A truck, too brutal for a Sunday drive, a sedan can't survive a paddock. What farmers needed was something in between, and nothing like it existed. Enter Lewis Bant, the first designer at Ford's Geelong plant, handed the brief of his life. His solution was elegant. Instead of bolting a tray onto the back of a truck, he took a Ford Model 40 passenger car and re-engineered the rear, creating a unified body where the cabin flowed seamlessly into the reinforced cargo bed. Car comfort up front, working muscle out back. It's the automotive equivalent of the mullet. Lewis called it the coupe utility, and it rolled off the production line in 1934. When Henry Ford saw the Australian prototype for the first time, he had one reaction. He called it the kangaroo chaser. It was meant as a compliment, a vehicle so perfectly adapted to the Australian landscape that it could only have come from here. And it was an instant hit. By 1951, Holden followed with its own ute, the 50-2106, or Holden Coupe Utility, based on the FX sedan. Then Chrysler joined the party in 1965 with the Wayfarer, a Valiant-based utility that brought American styling and V8 power to the segment for the first time. Suddenly, Australia had three major manufacturers, all competing to build the best workhorse on the continent. The Great Australian Ute War had begun. For a few decades, the ute knew its place. It was a tool. It went where it was needed, did what was asked, and didn't complain. But somewhere in the post-war years, something shifted. Tradespeople in the suburbs started buying them. Young drivers who'd never set foot on a farm started wanting them. By the 1970s, a Holden Kingswood or Ford Falcon Ute was just as likely to be parked in a city driveway as a farm shed. The Ute was going suburban, and the manufacturers were paying attention. Performance started creeping in. Bigger engines, better suspension. In the 1980s, special editions began appearing with sportier trimmings, two-tone paint, and the swagger the original farm tool never had. The Ute was no longer just useful, it was becoming aspirational. And then in 1987, everything changed. In 1987, Holden formed a partnership with Tom Walkinshaw Racing, a Scottish motorsport operation with a very simple philosophy. Take good cars, make them extraordinary.
Curious, slow, using every bit of the road.
The result was Holden's special vehicles, HSV. And the Ute had a name to match the ambition, Maloo. An Indigenous Australian word meaning thunder. This wasn't a farm ute, it wasn't a tradies ute, this was a weapon. The first Maloo arrived in 1990 with a 5-litre V8. By the year 2000, they dropped in an American-developed LS1, 342 horsepower, 0 to 100 in under 6 seconds, in a ute. The engineers kept pushing. The final Maloo in 2017 made 583 horsepower. It was faster than most sports cars, and it still had a tray. And then there was the W1. By 2017, local manufacturing in Australia was ending.
US carmaker General Motors says it has a plan to shut down Holden's Australian operations, including its manufacturing plants in Adelaide and Victoria.
Holden was closing its doors. Walkinshaw Performance had a handful of spare bodies, a surplus LS9 engine, the same 635 horsepower unit from the Corvette ZR1, and a decision to make. They built between 4 and 6 of them, by hand, no official business case, no production run, just a final, defiant act. Today, one of those cars has sold for more than $1 million at auction. The Maloo W1 is the last, wildest expression of something Australia invented and took to its absolute extreme. A car-based, rear-wheel drive performance ute that no other country on Earth thought to build. And then, in October 2017, the last Holden rolled off the line in Elizabeth, South Australia. The coupe utility in its purest form was over. What came next was a different kind of ute entirely. Without local manufacturers, the market pivoted to imports, and the vehicle that filled the void wasn't a sleek coupe utility, it was a global 4x4 dual cab, bigger, taller, and built for a world that wanted capability and comfort at the same time. For years, one nameplate sat above all others, the Toyota Hilux. 7 consecutive years as Australia's best-selling vehicle. 7 years of dust, bull bars, and the kind of loyalty that borders on religion. And then, in 2023, the Ford Ranger knocked it off. 63,000 sales, and Ford's first #1 since the EF Falcon in 1995. A new rivalry, Ranger versus Hilux, had replaced the old one. In that same year, the Australian new car market hit an all-time record. More than 1.2 million vehicles delivered, and utes accounted for a massive slice of it. The numbers were staggering. The ute, in its new dual-cab form, had become Australia's definitive vehicle. Not just the most practical, the most popular, full stop. But here's where the story gets interesting, because for the first time in a long time, people are asking a serious question. Have we hit peak ute? Toyota Australia themselves have used that exact phrase, peak ute. The idea that after years of relentless growth, the segment may have reached its ceiling. And there are real signs of pressure. SUVs, particularly hybrids like the Toyota RAV4, are surging. The RAV4 is now within striking distance of the top sales spot. If it gets there, it would be the first time an SUV has claimed that crown. From the other direction, Chinese brands are arriving with utes that undercut the Ranger and Hilux price while matching them feature for feature. The GWM Cannon, the Jack T9, and of course the BYD Shark, the first major plug-in hybrid ute, are already here. And the traditional players know it. Electric versions of the Ranger and Hilux are on their way. The ute that Australians love is about to face more competition than it has ever seen. At the end of the day, whether the farmer's letter was real or not doesn't actually matter. What matters is the idea behind it was real. A single vehicle that could do everything, that could carry a family and haul a load, that could be practical on a weekday and something you were proud of on the weekend. Lewis Bant answered that brief in 1934 with a coupe utility built in Geelong, and every ute that has come since, from the Holden FX to the Maloo W1 to the Ford Ranger, has been trying to answer it again. The ute has survived the death of local manufacturing, 100 years of changing roads and changing lives, and it will survive whatever comes next. Rugged, adaptable, and built to handle whatever Australia throws at it. Same as it ever was.